The gate agent doesn't look up. 11 seconds. She still hasn't looked up. Not because she's rude, because your ticket already told her everything she needed to know. The airline isn't judging you. Your boarding pass already did. On this same airplane, two people will live completely different realities. One will fight for overhead bin space. The other will be welcomed by name before they even sit down. The aircraft never changes. Only the version of the world built around your seat does. Level 1, basic economy, $89. Seat 34E wasn't bad luck. It was the cheapest decision available. Group 9, the last people to board. By the time you reach the gate, your suitcase is already being tagged for cargo because there's no overhead space left. Nobody apologizes. Nobody needs to. You squeeze into the middle seat between two strangers. Within minutes, an invisible negotiation begins. Who gets the armrest? Who gives up their shoulder? Who apologizes first? Nobody explains these rules. You simply discover them by losing. The seat in front of you reclines. Your knees don't have anywhere else to go. The drink cart arrives. Water is free. Everything else costs $9. You almost order the ginger ale. Then you remember that $9 becomes lunch tomorrow. No thanks. You say it so naturally it barely sounds like a decision anymore. The flight attendant smiles politely, already moving to the next row before you finish speaking, because there are 178 more passengers exactly like you. The first rule, at basic economy, you're not buying comfort. You're buying permission to exist on the airplane. Level 2, standard economy, $340. This time you spend an extra $28, not for more space, just for the privilege of choosing where you'll be uncomfortable. An aisle seat. That tiny decision feels strangely satisfying, which should tell you something. You board in group 6 now. It feels like progress until every overhead bin is still full. A man pushes his suitcase sideways into a compartment 3 rows ahead. Nobody stops him. Everyone silently accepts that the rules belong to whoever gets there first. Later, you buy the $9 snack box. Cheese, crackers, chocolate, nothing special. Yet you eat it slowly, trying to convince yourself it was worth it. Across the aisle, someone's reclining seat knocks a laptop onto the floor. Nobody apologizes properly because everyone understands something uncomfortable. The cabin isn't designed to make people comfortable. It's designed to make everyone negotiate discomfort together. The second rule, the upgrades you buy don't change how you're treated. They only change how much you paid to be treated the same. Level 3, economy plus, $95,000 a year. This is where airports stop feeling slightly less hostile. Not because anything dramatic changes, because tiny things finally stop working against you. 4 extra inches of legroom. That's it. 4 inches. Enough that your knees no longer touch the seat ahead, and somehow your entire body relaxes. You didn't even realize how tense you'd become until the tension disappeared. Your company booked this ticket, not because they care about your comfort, because someone in accounting discovered tired employees make expensive mistakes. The flight attendant walks by. Good morning. She says it directly to you. For a second, you wonder if she knows you. She doesn't. But the greeting still feels different. You're handed a complimentary snack, not because you earned it, because your fare class says you did. The blue curtain separating first class is still there. You've been looking at it since your very first flight. Only now, you've started wondering less about what's behind it and more about what it feels like when nobody has to wonder anymore. The third rule, at Economy Plus, you're not paying for extra legroom. You're paying for the first small hint that the world might eventually become easier. Level 4, domestic first, $145,000 a year. This is where the airport finally starts noticing you, not because you've changed, because your ticket has. Group 2, a flight attendant smiles before you've even found your seat. She says your name. You know she read it from the manifest. It still feels strangely personal. A real glass appears in your hand before the plane even moves. Orange juice, no plastic cup, no wallet reaching for a credit card, just an assumption that this part is already included. Lunch arrives on real plates, metal cutlery, a warm cookie. Nothing here is life-changing. That's what makes it powerful. Luxury rarely arrives all at once. It arrives as dozens of tiny moments where nobody asks you to reach into your pocket. Then the plane lands. The seatbelt sign turns off. For the first time, you're walking off the aircraft while 200 people are still waiting behind you. It's only 3 minutes. But 3 minutes is enough to understand something. Status isn't always measured by what you receive. Sometimes it's measured by who gets to leave first. The fourth rule, domestic first class doesn't make the flight shorter. It simply makes waiting someone else's problem. Level 5, international business, $280,000 a year. This isn't a seat anymore. It's a room pretending to be one. A door slides almost shut, not to hide you, to make you forget there are 200 strangers only a few feet away. A flight attendant greets you by name, hands you a menu, not asks if you're hungry, asks what you'd prefer. There's a difference. Dinner arrives in courses, real plates, real silverware, food you'd happily pay for in a restaurant. Then something unexpected happens. You stop thinking about seat 34E, not because you've become arrogant, because comfort quietly erases comparison. The world gets smaller when every need is solved before you notice it. Hours later, you're lying completely flat, blanket pulled gently over your feet. cabin lights fading around you. For the first time after a long flight, you don't arrive exhausted, you arrive rested. And that's when you realize what business class was really selling all along. Not luxury, not status, time. The version of tomorrow where jet lag never got the chance to steal your day. The fifth rule, international business class isn't selling you a better seat. It's selling you a tomorrow that feels exactly like today. Level 6, international first, $520,000 a year. This is where the airport stops feeling public. A car collects you from home. Not because you asked, because that's simply how this ticket begins. The security line disappears. A smaller entrance. People who recognize your face before checking your passport. The lounge isn't filled with buffet trays anymore. A chef asks what you'd like instead. Your suite closes completely now. An actual room, quiet enough to forget you're inside an airplane. A flight attendant introduces herself, not to the cabin, to you. She'll be looking after your flight personally. Caviar arrives before you even open the menu. Not because you ordered it, because at this level, nobody waits for you to ask. You notice something strange. Almost every inconvenience you've accepted your entire life has quietly vanished. No lines, no waiting, no negotiating. Just smooth transitions from one door to the next. The sixth rule, international first class doesn't sell luxury. It sells a world where friction barely exists. Level 7, the private terminal, $2.5 million a year. One day, you realize you haven't walked through an airport in months. A separate building waits a mile away. No crowds, no announcements, no rushing toward gate C-17 before boarding closes. Someone greets you by name before you say a word. Your arrival was already expected. Security takes minutes. No shoes off, no laptop out. A black SUV drives you directly across the tarmac. The airplane feels smaller, quieter, more like a private club than commercial travel. Every face on board belongs there. Nobody is fighting for overhead space. Nobody is checking boarding groups. Nobody is looking at the curtain because the curtain no longer exists. Something changes here. Transportation quietly becomes hospitality. The seventh rule, the private terminal isn't about skipping the airport. It's about forgetting airports were ever part of travel. Level 8, the private jet, $40 million net worth. You stop booking flights. You start scheduling departures. One phone call. A few hours later, the aircraft is waiting. No boarding pass, no gate, no final call. The pilot welcomes you by name. The cabin is silent. No announcements, no strangers, just people you chose to bring. A flight attendant asks one question. What would you like today? There isn't a menu, only preferences. Your bags never disappear. They leave the airplane exactly when you do. Somewhere along the way, travel stopped feeling like something you endured. It became something that simply happened around you. The eighth rule, a private jet doesn't make the sky closer. It removes everything standing between you and it. Level 9, the owned aircraft, $250 million net worth. The airplane belongs to you now. So does everyone keeping it in the air. 2 pilots, a flight attendant, a maintenance crew, an entire system built around one schedule, yours. You don't request departures. You announce them. Your assistant handles the rest. Fuel, crew, flight plans, customs. Even your favorite meal is already waiting. Not because someone asked, because someone remembered. The biggest luxury isn't the airplane. It's never needing to think about the airplane. Infrastructure has quietly replaced convenience. The 9th rule, real wealth isn't having more choices. It's needing to make fewer of them. Level 10, the fleet, $2 billion net worth. Eventually, one airplane isn't enough. One flies internationally. Another handles regional trips. A helicopter waits outside your house, not for emergencies. For Tuesday mornings, you employ an aviation department. Pilots, schedulers, engineers, people whose entire careers exist, so you never have to think about yours. Last month, someone mentioned 2 of your captains once flew heads of state. You nodded, forgot the conversation 5 minutes later. That's what wealth eventually does. It turns extraordinary into ordinary. Air travel becomes invisible, like electricity. You only notice it when something goes wrong. The 10th rule, at this level, you don't travel through the system anymore. You become your own system. Somewhere, right now, a man is standing in boarding group 9. He's checking the departure screen for the 3rd time. Even though he already knows the gate hasn't changed, his backpack feels heavier than it actually is, not because of what's inside it, but because he's wondering whether the $9 snack box is worth what's left in his bank account until Friday. He decides it isn't. He'll eat after he lands. A few rows away, someone is carefully pushing their suitcase into an overhead bin that isn't really theirs. Someone else is hoping the middle seat stays empty. Someone silently celebrates when it doesn't. Because sometimes, at this level, your biggest luxury isn't champagne. It's an empty seat beside you. Now imagine another traveler. Same destination, same weather, same airplane. They're sitting behind a closed door in business class. Dinner has already been served. The bed has already been made. Tomorrow's breakfast has already been chosen for them. Nobody asked whether they'd like extra legroom. That question disappeared long before they reached the airport. And somewhere else, on the other side of the city, a private jet is waiting. Its engines aren't running yet because they're waiting for the passenger, not the other way around. No boarding announcements, no crowded terminals, no gate changes. No one saying, "Final call call for flight 247. The schedule bends around one person's calendar instead of asking that person to bend around it. That's the strange thing about money. People think wealth buys bigger seats, better food, private jets. It does, but those were never the real product. The real product was friction. Every dollar you earn quietly removes another small inconvenience from your life. First, you stop worrying about the snack. Then, you stop worrying about the overhead bin. Eventually, you stop worrying about the boarding group, then security, then the airport itself. And finally, you stop thinking about flying altogether. Because somewhere between seat 34E and your own aircraft, travel stopped being something you experienced. It became something happening silently in the background while your life continued. The airplane never changed. The engines produced the same thrust. The sky looked exactly the same through every window. Clouds don't care what your ticket cost. Gravity doesn't care how much money you have. The runway treats every aircraft exactly the same. The difference was never the physics. The difference was the system built around the physics. Every upgrade, every lounge, every priority lane, every closed suite, every private terminal was another layer separating you from inconvenience. Until one day, you realized the word wait had quietly disappeared from your vocabulary. Nobody tells you this when you're young. They tell you money buys freedom. They rarely explain what that freedom actually feels like.